Hello! This afternoon, we're going to have a mini lesson over something called Hot Word Magic, okay?
Okay.
We're going to go over two words that can be kind of tricky for some people to pronounce.
Okay.
The first word is his. His rhymes with is and whiz. His has three sounds in the word. And z. Alright? And z.
Z.
Awesome. What's the first sound we hear in his?
H.
Awesome. We know that is spelled with the letter H.
Okay.
Where would the H go?
That would be the first rectangle.
The second sound that we hear is what in his?
I.
And that I is spelled with the letter I. Where would I go?
That would be in the second rectangle.
Awesome. Now let's take a look at the third letter in his. What sound do you hear for the third letter in his?
Z.
We know that the letter for the sound of Z sounds like a Z, right?
Okay.
But it's not. It's actually what?
S.
An S, right. Where would the S go in
It
his?
would go where the little heart is.
Let's touch each part of the word and say it together.
H. I. Z.
Awesome. Now, let's review the word. What's the first sound in the word his?
H.
Yep. What letter spells
H.
What's the next sound in his?
I.
What letter spells I?
I.
Right. For the last sound in his, however, the sound z in the word his isn't spelled with a Z, but it's spelled with what letter?
With an S.
Right. So we just said that the letter that spells z is S, right?
Yes.
That's the tricky part in this particular word that we have to remember.
Okay.
Now that we know each part of this word, let's write it
H.
I,
I.
z.
Z.
Now that we know each part, let's write it above.
His.
Awesome. The next word is of. Of rhymes with love.
Okay.
The next word is of. Alright? This word, of, rhymes with love.
Okay.
Of has two sounds. And v. And v. You try.
A. V.
What's the first sound you hear in the word of?
A.
It is not a U, even though it does sound like it. It's an O. That's one of the parts of this particular word we need to remember, or know by heart. So let's write the letter O in the first part. Okay? What's the next sound we hear in the word of?
V.
So where would the V go?
Here.
We know that V is usually spelled with the letter V, but not in this case. It's actually spelled with an F. That's the other part of this word we need to memorize, or know by heart. My apologies. Let's see. Then let's write an F in the second heart.
F.
Nicely done. The So, we just learned that the V isn't with a V, but rather a
F.
Awesome. Now let's touch each part and say it together.
V.
Awesome. Let's review the word of. What's the first sound in of? Remember that the sound in of isn't spelled with the letter O or with the letter U. My apologies. What letter spells in of?
O.
What's the next sound in of?
V.
Remember that the V in of is not spelled with a V, even though it does sound like it, and it can be kind of tricky. What letter spells V in of?
F.
That's the other part of this tricky word that we need to know by heart. Now that we have both parts of this particular word of, let's write it in the space above. Awesome.
Of.
Now that we know these two words of his and of, now that we know the tricky parts of, this is what I need you to keep in mind. The squares are for the normal letters like H and I and it. But for letters in words such as the Z and his and the and V and of, because they're not the letters you would think, they're in the heart, which is why we call them heart-shaped words. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I have to know them by heart.
And that concludes the mini lesson for today.
Thank you.